Welcome to another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love, hosted by Richard Osler. My guests on today's podcast are Mikel and Joe Eldridge. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
I've been at North Star, an LDS LGBTQ support organization, this past weekend of March in Salt Lake City, and I was not able to go to the Friday session or the Sunday testimony, but I went to the Saturday session and went to several breakouts, and there was one story that really broke out, that really resonated with me, and I didn't go there to try to generate podcasts, but as I sat and heard the story that Joe and Mikel shared, I did approach Mikel and just asked if he'd be willing to share his story in a podcast, and they live in Texas and Idaho, and so I thought I'd do this over the phone, but lo and behold, we're on a Sunday afternoon here before everybody takes off to share part of their story. So I'm really grateful for you being here, and I think your story is unique. I've heard a lot of stories, but there's some unique parts about this story. We're also joined by friends that are here. Nate is a friend, a family friend, and Bird is a sister here, but they are not mic'd up, so we probably won't hear from them. And we're missing Wendy, your good wife and your good mother, who's traveling. And as we started this podcast, we recognize that Wendy's a big part of this story, so we may do a second podcast, or for sure what we'll do today is have Joe and Mikel bring Wendy's voice into what she's done. I'm going to kind of start this podcast with the story I heard, and then we'll go back to the full story. I was sitting in a training session of how parents can help their LGBTQ youth, and the presenter, and I've forgotten her name,
Diana Holscher,
who's another Texan.
Yeah.
Great Texan.
She was my senior year seminary teacher.
And she's kind of a noted speaker, and she did a great job. And my wife is Texan, as some of my listeners may know, so I just felt so comfortable being around all you Texans while I was hanging out in downtown Utah. But let's start with the story. That night, you were asleep, Mikel, and then you felt something was off in your home.
Yeah. It was a very memorable night. I was laying in bed. It was late, and I felt a complete and total feeling come over me that something wasn't right. Like the door was unlocked, or I had an intruder in my home. And I recognized that as a possible threat to my family. I then turned over to my wife, told her that I was going to go do a sweep of the house. I went to my side table and grabbed my 9mm.
Like a good Texan, good American.
And
my wife would be proud of you.
Thank you. I chambered a bullet.
Wow.
To go sweep the house.
Is your house multi-level or one level?
It's multi-level. Our master bedroom is upstairs. And so I did a sweep of the upstairs. I put my head into all the bedrooms. Everybody was asleep upstairs.
And you have four. How many kids do you have?
We have 4 kids.
4 kids. They're all home at this point.
All home.
Okay.
Was Sawyer home on he was on his mission. I think Sawyer was on his mission.
Okay.
Served one in Idaho.
Okay.
And so I did a sweep upstairs. We had a visitor. My mom was there. And that's why as I go downstairs to sweep the downstairs, check the doors, I see a glow coming from what we call the invisible couch. Is if you're sitting on it or laying on it, nobody knows you're there. It's just in the front room. Nobody ever goes in that front room.
What a great spot.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
It's
a great spot. But there's a glow coming from that. And I realized that it's one of my kids out of bed. And it was Joe, because Joe had given up his bed that night to my mom. And once I realized it was my child, put the safety back on.
Thankfully.
We'll be having a very different podcast.
Very much different. Maybe, Texas Penitentiary.
Yeah.
Huntsville.
Let's go talk there.
Yeah, but as I As I went up behind the couch, Joe not hearing me.
And Joe's how old?
Joe
16.
is 16,
Okay.
almost 17.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, 16. And he was watching pornography, male pornography. And quickly, he turns the phone over. We have a conversation. Conversation kind of went like this. What you doing? Nothing. Can I see your phone? Sure. Joe's face goes into the pillow. I find out what's on the phone. I hand the phone back to him. I don't delete. It's his phone, his property. And I just turn to him and I say, when you're done, come up and talk to me and Mom. And I turn around and I walk back upstairs. Put away the gun. Climb back in bed with my wife. Let her know that Joe is coming up to talk to us. And that I just found him viewing pornography. And what seemed like forever, Joe comes up and sits on the end of the bed, which is not the place where I want him. He breaks down crying. Wow, this is bad. Oh,
That's excellent.
You're doing great.
oh. I don't want him there. He starts crying. All I can do is pull him in. I just want to hold him. So we pull him into the bed, in between me and Wendy. We get him under the covers, and we just hold him for hours.
Mm-hmm.
For hours. And at that point, he comes out to us that he's gay.
Wow.
That I not only have a son viewing pornography that I have to deal with, but I now have a gay son. I didn't know what to do at that point other than to just hold him and love him and live in that moment. Because my dreams of what I wanted for him were being dashed against the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Joe's giving his dad high fives over here and thumbs
That's
ups.
excellent. That's excellent.
And there's some good contact here. Joe, talk about, I've tried to put myself in your shoes walking upstairs to talk to my parents after I've just been found out, or whatever you want to call it, by your dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, up to this point, I'd kind of really found the vocabulary and kind of realized that I was gay when I was probably 11 or 12, and then got into pornography and things like that, but didn't ever have the courage to tell Mom and Dad, because every Sunday school teacher would come up to Mom and Dad, oh my goodness, your children are just perfect, they know all the answers and they're just so reverent, and and I had this expectation of like, I'm the good Mormon kid, and I didn't want to ruin that. I didn't want to ruin that perspective that my family had of me. And so when Dad discovered me viewing the gay pornography, I was absolutely terrified, but at the same time entirely relieved, because finally I could talk about it. I could get the courage to talk about it, because otherwise I don't know when I would have come out to them.
Wow.
Probably would have been right before I went on my mission out of desperation. I'm not sure. So there was a good amount of time after Dad went up before I followed him up, and I don't exactly remember what happened there. It was just a rush of emotions of relief and terror and what's going to happen, you know. But when I did walk upstairs, walking up those stairs was surreal, which is why it feels like that whole night feels like a dream. Because finally my life was heading towards repentance and improvement and coming more unto my Savior. And then sitting at the edge of their bed, feeling that separation, which is, I'm sure, why the Spirit told my dad and my dad's character in general to bring me in and to hold me, was exactly what I needed. To feel that my parents loved me no matter what. And that's been a mantra from them that they've always told me is, you know, no matter what happens, is that they're there for me. So we were talking about it. We have no idea what we said that night.
No idea. I couldn't repeat it at all.
Yeah.
No idea.
Other than I remember coming out to them saying, yep, I'm gay. And we, you know, I was held by my parents.
Which was better for you, the physical touch from your parents, just being held, maybe even particularly from your dad at this point,
Mm-hmm.
or the verbal communication he had with you of continued love, or was it both equally important?
Well, I think just the fact that I can remember the physical more than the words, I think says something. For me, I'm a very touchy guy, and physical touch is very important for me. And so feeling that acceptance and that everything had just changed, but nothing had changed at the same time. I was still their son. They just found out a little bit more about me, kind of thing. And so, yeah, that physical touch was very important, to know that we're still that family. You know, nothing has changed, yet everything has changed.
I've thought of, and just for our listeners, Joe has served a mission in New Zealand. You're
21.
So
yeah.
This is 5 years ago, and a lot's transpired since that night 5 or 6 years ago. And I think you're up at BYU, Idaho.
I am.
And we'll talk more about the future. But as you shared that story, and being a singles ward bishop, a few things flooded my mind. One is the longer I spent with the good men and women working on porn, which was most of the ward, the active men and women, the more I realized that shame is one of the most, Satan's biggest tool around porn.
Absolutely.
Is that you don't want to talk about it. You feel unworthy of God's love. It's sort of like, it's the two-edged sword. I think porn is a problem. I don't want to dismiss that, but the shame around it and the isolation and the hidingness, and that's the thing that worries me longer term. And I was just so struck that in this public meeting at North Star with 200 people in the room, that story was shared with your permission. And Joe, my respect for you just kind of went off the charts, because I thought, here is a son of God who is so clear about who he is that he can talk about that, and in a non-shaming way and in a factual way. And I thought, what hope Joe can bring to other people that are working this same road, or just working through other difficult things that need repentance. And I was just so struck. The other thing that struck me as I sat behind the two of you is you had your hand around your son.
Always.
And I could tell you weren't pulling away. I could tell that Mikel, your dad, wasn't doing that just for the show of the group. And you were awkwarded by that. That's not a word, listeners. But I could tell that you leaned into your dad, and that was part of your relationship. And I thought that is a male attribute, to show affection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not in our male culture sometimes, and you carry a gun, so you're kind of a manly man. That you can carry a gun and defend your home and be a manly man. But part of being a manly man is the physical affection you showed your son that night. And you drew him into the bed, and you just hugged him. And that was, to me, a home run parenting moment, one of the finest home run parenting moments I've ever heard. And you didn't learn that in an elders quorum lesson or a priest quorum lesson. Can you share with our listeners just why you were able to do that? Because I assume you had no lesson that says if you're around the house at 1 a.m. and your 16-year-old son's looking at gay porn, this is what you do.
This is the best way to do it.
And I just, I've been. So you've never had a lesson for that.
No,
but you had a set of
I've
principles.
I've never had a lesson on that. I just, and maybe it was just I didn't know what to do.
That's so honest.
Maybe I didn't know. But in my struggle through my life, which are many, and I'm still working on several, is to love like Christ loves. To have the ability to no matter what, you're forgiven. Go and sin no more. And we're going to, in the words of Brad Wilcox, we're going to do it again and again and again. And the Lord is going to accept us again and again and again. And if I can call myself a Christian, if I can call myself a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I have to act more like him. And so the drive and the understanding is just that. I have to be more like Christ. Now, my background is huge anger. When my 3 children, we have 4, but there's an 8-year gap between number 3 and number 4. And so when those 3 kids were just at home, I was in a super dark place. And anger was in the forefront of that because I wasn't living the way that I was supposed to either. But I also didn't want to be or continue down a path of abuse. I didn't want to be that dad, which I learned super early on as a father, that I can't pass that on. I have to stop it in this generation. And then I just committed to that.
How did you overcome anger? Because ironically, one of my YSAs messaged me today and he said, will you please do a podcast on anger? And I don't know if that's because of his own anger or anger in his family, but I've never done a podcast on anger and talked to somebody that's sort of recognized anger and said, "This I cannot pass this on to another generation."
Yeah, it's
and sort of man up.
It was my generation. It was my dad's generation. It was my grandpa's generation. They were all in those types of relationships, and it wasn't healthy. It's not healthy. And so the way that I overcame it was, and I don't mean to be disrespectful for my father, because I love my father, who is passed at this point. But I learned to be a dad by doing the direct opposite of what my dad would have done in a situation.
It's interesting. I think that honors him in a way.
This is what my dad would have done. Okay, so we're going to do 180 from that. And I think that's the right way to go. My dad was better than his dad.
That's so thoughtful.
And I just want to be better than my dad. And I just want my kids to be better than me.
How long did it take you to sort of get where you want to be on anger? And you probably would say, I'm not completely there yet, but this shift, did it take a year, 3 years, 6 months, 1 day?
I think I've been working on my anger. When my wife came and told me that every day is like walking on eggshells around me, and if one breaks, it's kind of got loose. And when she verbalized that to me, I'm like, holy crap, I've turned into my father, which was devastating to me, because that is exactly what I didn't want. That part of my father. I wanted the loving father. I wanted the father that worked at the temple. I wanted the father that was showing love and kindness. And I just made a decision. We have to change this. And that was 1999, 2000. I've been working on it since, still working on it. I still have my moments of complete and total frustration. But my Lord and Savior and my wife, I love her so much.
Wendy, we wish you were here. We talked quite a bit before we started about the love this family has for you.
They do the walk with me. And when I'm starting to feel angry, I verbalize it right away. It happened yesterday at North Star. I woke up angry. I don't know why. No idea why I was so angry, but I was so upset. I verbalized it to my wife. I verbalized it to Joe. Mm-hmm. And they know because we build teams together for support. We built Team Joe to support Joe. We now have Team Eldridge because we've expanded it. Because it's not just Joe that needs it. It's the Eldridge family needs this. And so as soon as there is any distress, we need to verbalize that to our family. And once we verbalize it, the family goes into action.
I'm struck with how honest you are. And I sometimes worry in our Mormon culture, we parents are meant to be perfect. And then I think one of the challenges it creates in our kids is they feel like if they mess up, that they have no opportunity to talk to their perfect parents. But if their parents are a little more just vulnerable and honest and say, we're a work in process, it may make more space for our kids to sort of open up to you. Joe, any thoughts on that?
No, that's exactly the story. When I understood, which is so funny to say, once I understood my parents were not perfect, I felt so much more comfortable coming to them and speaking to them about what I was going through, and just the fact that Dad is very open with, I'm not having a good day, I need a Monster. And
that's a drink.
Yeah, it's
good.
So
great medicine.
So he goes for that, and he's just very open and honest about it, and that vulnerability within the family opens up so much love.
Well, and I've just been vulnerable from the beginning. I wanted my kids to know that I know how hard it is to be a kid and to be a teenager. I failed. I stumbled. The Lord still loves me. My parents still love me. So from as early as my kids, as early as my kids could understand, I shared my...
Some dads that stumble might just leave it at that and say, I stumbled. And we may not get very specific. And some dads feel impressed to maybe share some categories that I stumbled in. Well, any advice for our listeners? And well, I don't want you to feel like you have to lay out all your mistakes for the next rest of the podcast.
So to me, vulnerability is the only way to come closer to God. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with the people that you love, and they will rally around you. They will. Believe it. But I think my coming and being vulnerable with my kids, I think had a two-part. One, I wanted them to know me. One, I wanted them to know that if they were smoking or drinking, I knew what that smelled like, looked like, and tasted like.
I know.
Because that was part of your past.
That was my past. So I wanted to make sure.
Did you worry telling your kids about your past would be more likely they'd make this go on that same road? Or did you feel like this is going to help them in the long run?
I felt like it would help them in the long run only because I shared with them. I didn't share with them the drunken parties, what Satan shows as fun. I shared with them the after party the next morning.
We don't see that on TV.
The laying on the bathroom floor, praying to God that this goes away. And I promise I won't do it again. I shared that with them, that these are not great decisions. And you can learn about life on your own, or you can learn life from someone else who's already lived that. Please. And that was my mantra. It was one, and I know I'm on the word mantra this weekend, but
No, it's fine.
my mantra is, please learn from me. Please.
Talk about how that impacted you, Joe, to learn your dad drank and smoke at one point in his life.
He was very open. I always remember my dad talking about it. He was very open about
Just
it.
natural. And he didn't suddenly have this conversation when you were 18.
No. He's like, all right, I think it's time that your dad used to drink, It was from the beginning, and I knew that my dad struggled with it. But understanding and I never really knew how good I had it growing up until like I really grew up and understood, and even went on a mission and saw other families, and I'm like, oh my goodness, having these families that are so open and vulnerable about the mistakes that they had made and
Life.
And just life, and how the atonement how Christ's atonement had played a part in all of that. So as a child, it definitely creates an environment of love and of vulnerability. It's incredible.
It's very, very helpful. And I think of the principles in a family and a congregation. I think as a local leader, it was hard to me be vulnerable. I don't think we're encouraged to do maybe what you did in a family situation, in a ward setting, but maybe an individual situation with the priest quorum, or in a one-on-one situation. But I think these principles apply. I've seen a counselor twice in my life, and I remember telling the YSA sometimes, your good bishop, if they called me good, has seen a counselor, and maybe it's okay to do that. And
it's
so sometimes
totally great to do that.
Sometimes I found that when I was vulnerable, it did connect me in an authentic way with people. So, and I love some of the principles you're teaching about being a man. Both of you. Right now, you guys are holding hands. And that is very natural. And you could have a gun in one pocket. I don't know if you do.
No, sir. Not across state
My
lines.
wife would like that.
Not across state lines.
I went on an airplane to get here,
so you could have a gun in one hand and be doing things that our culture says are manly. And I'm just talking about the gun. There's lots of ways to do that.
Yeah.
And your other hand is here holding your son. And you're both very comfortable doing that. And I just see culturally we've defined masculinity in certain ways that you two are mature enough to say, we in our family don't need to do that. We can define masculinity the way that we want to define this in our family and be confident in that. Any more thoughts on that?
Yeah. You tell me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite. So you tell me I can't hold my son's hand at any time,
and he'll snuggle with
I'm
me.
going to snuggle with him. You tell me to snuggle with my son, and I'll go, okay. It's just culturally, I'm just not.
And I assume
I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid of.
You've got
of
a straight son who's married, and I assume you would hold hands with your straight son.
I do, and
This isn't sort of about having a gay kid and a straight kid and treating them differently.
At age 24, my oldest son just recently had a bad day at work, and came and sat in his dad's lap before dinner. He just had a bad day. Awesome. If I could give some comfort, please. The worst thing that happens is my legs go numb. That's awesome. Because he now feels better, and he's able to go about the rest of his day and tomorrow. He'll still have to get up and go to work again tomorrow. But if I can bring any joy, any love, any compassion, let's bring it.
Let's go back to your story, Joe.
Okay.
I want to make a comment about the porn, and you tell me if this is true or not. I didn't have much experience until I became a YSA bishop, and then my conclusion is that porn does not change sexual identity. It's an insight into how you're wired. So do you ever get a feeling where people say, well, you're gay because you looked at porn, and if you had never looked at porn, you wouldn't be gay? Do you want to talk about that, dispel any myths, and help our listeners understand?
Dad's smiling at me because that's kind of when I first came out, That was
I was totally going to fix that.
yeah. Dad's like, it's because of the porn, or it's because of this.
Dads are fix it.
Dad played the blame game. You know, okay, so maybe I wasn't rough enough, or I don't know.
Maybe you didn't mow the lawn enough.
Maybe, and I was totally okay with that. But and so I think there is a lot of stigma with. I think a lot of people use that because they want something to blame.
Interesting.
They want to
Put
say
everything back in the box.
my child is gay because of this, and so it can be fixed, right? I had those feelings and those thoughts beforehand, and then viewing gay pornography, because I kind of developed this vocabulary of like, okay, so I think these feelings mean this, and then I got curious, obviously, and then viewed pornography. And I was like,
Just like a straight son might do.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Just like, yeah. And then when I watched the gay pornography, I didn't feel disgusted at all, you know, from the first get-go.
That's honest.
And so, yeah, I never felt like it was developed from, it definitely heightened my sexual, I guess, drive, you could say. Just because it's the look into the hypersexualized world that we live in. That's porn, you know?
Well articulated.
So it was definitely not caused by the pornography, but the pornography definitely isolated me in my own mind and told me that this is my world.
It's really very, very thoughtful. And thanks just for talking about this subject that there's a lot of shame around.
Mm-hmm.
And you offered, I can't remember if I already mentioned this, but we asked you to offer the prayer, and you offered the prayer before we started. And there's just a great spirit about you, Joe.
You.
There's no question in my mind that you know the atonement, you know the Savior, and you have a level of spiritual maturity way beyond your years.
Yeah.
Talk about when you knew you were gay.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as a child, I would walk around in high heels. I could go up and down a slide in high heels and do just fine with dresses. I had the whole collection of Wizard of Oz Barbies. I asked those for my birthday, and my dad was really good at, providing those, which was awesome. And it wasn't really until probably...
That was your mom that provided.
Oh, that was mom. Dad, I think Dad had... Oh, yeah, you had a problem with the high heels, too. That's right. Dad was working through that.
I was working through that.
So, I kind of always felt a bit more stereotypically feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I think it was 6th grade, I was wearing a scarf to school. And that was the first time someone ever called me faggot. And I do not like that word. It's a trigger word for me, and I don't like it very much. And I knew what it meant. And so when that person, I still remember their name, of course not going to mention it, but it was a very memorable moment for me because I realized maybe I am gay, because I had been feeling all these feelings up to that point, and then I suddenly had a word to attach to those feelings. And then it was solidified when I walked into the 7th grade PE locker room, and I saw, obviously all the guys getting dressed, and I was like, oh, okay, I am aroused by this.
So
and that's honest. When it was really solidified. I'm like, okay, Joe, I think you're gay. That's when I started getting curious about pornography. And that was about 7th grade. And it wasn't until my junior year. So like about 4 or 5 years until my parents found out.
It's really honest. Thanks for being so honest. It takes a bit of courage. And there just seems no shame. This is just who you are.
Yeah,
this is who
that's my
God's
story.
Created. And talk about your emotional health. And would you have any thoughts? I forgot how old you were. 22?
21. Yeah.
21.
Not yet.
So let's say there's closeted junior high people listening. What would you say to as your older self to your younger self, or what would you say to closeted people that might be in a really tough spot emotionally?
That was the darkest part of my life so far, because I was the only one that knew. Well, me and God, and still I felt like I was the only one. It was very isolating because I had that shame attached to it. I didn't want to break the stereotypes of everyone in my church and all my friends, even that were not members, that knew me as that good Mormon kid, or my parents, and I didn't want to break that. The feeling of not only pornography itself, which is very isolating and humiliating. You know, I felt ugly. I felt not good enough. Because these hypersexualized, you know, stereotypically beautiful people that are in these.
So that added to your load, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But overall, it was just driving the nail in every single day. You're gay. Why did God make you gay? Why did he do this to you? He doesn't love you. Things like that. Those were feelings that were going over and over. And I remember exactly where I was when I thought to myself, well, the telestial kingdom sounds really nice. If I could just give in, live a gay lifestyle, and I'd be fine with that. Contemplating suicide was frequent, but I never went any further because I knew that what that would do to my family and to those that I loved.
What would it have done to them?
I just always think of, I remember my brother had a girlfriend who passed away. And I remember vividly my dad's face when he found out the news that she had died. And
Devastating.
It was absolutely devastating. And that is a very strong image in my head. And so just imagining that times 20, you know, for your own son to have killed themselves.
The girlfriend that died wasn't suicide.
No, it was just a car crash.
It was a car accident. Yeah.
So
super sudden.
yeah. And so for me to commit suicide, I could not bear to see my parents' faces like that. I don't know, I loved them too much, even though I wanted to hide this from them, even though I felt like I had been screwed over by God. I couldn't do that. And so I had to do something, but I just didn't. I was so scared to tell anyone. I was so alone. And that's why I think God prompted my dad to search the house, was because it was time. You know, God was like, Joe, it's time for you to tell someone, or for someone to find out, so that you can improve.
I love your answer about suicide. And I don't have a lot of training, but I do. Sometimes I've received some training to talk about what happens if you did, and talk about then the people. And I love the way that you were able to go one step further than the feelings you were feeling about suicide, be able to see the loved ones' faces. Because I think one of the things I think that's helpful is for other people that are feeling suicidal, Joe, that they can use the example you've walked. You've walked that desert. You know that desert, and then you can heal other people and help them. What you just said gives someone hope.
Yeah.
And hope is a great word. It was part of North Star. I love what you said, that God's hand was in that night, that you felt impressed to get out of bed, and that you then could talk to your parents, and how that was just part of it. I love the wording you just said. Mm-hmm. Talk about the relief, because one of the things you talked about that night when you climbed into bed and came out to your parents is the terror and the relief. Talk just why it was so relieving to finally, and if it helped your emotional health and feelings about suicide, to be out to your parents.
I think it definitely did help my mental health, because I was no longer isolated. I had brought people into the closet.
Team Joe.
You know, like I hadn't so much come out as bringing people into my closet to, like, by the way, this is what I'm going through. Here's a little taste of what I'm experiencing here. And so to have someone there to support was incredible. And that was the relief. But also, I have no idea what my parents are going to do tomorrow. You know, and I don't know. It's so much uncertainty. But at least I had that day of hope, and that day of looks like things are going to at least improve, you know. And so with my mental health, of course, there was still frustration of suicide, you know, and that those thoughts of suicide, of, you know, it's still frustrating. It never really stops being quite frustrating, you know. But having people around me has enabled me to improve in that.
Talk about your parents, and it sounds like they've both done a good job, but are there things that your mom particularly did well and your dad particularly well that you needed from a male parent and a female parent? Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that, Joe?
At first, mom was the fix it and dad was the blame it, which was natural, I think. They did not have the education of how to deal with a gay son. at first it was just the pornography and masturbation that was addressed, which was hard because I wanted to talk about my feelings, but they didn't have the vocabulary or the education to talk about that. But what I admired so much about my parents is that they were quite diligent, especially my mom. Mom was just researching and handing me all these articles that sometimes weren't very helpful, but at least she was trying, and just seeing them try their best. Their job wasn't so much to understand everything, because they can't totally understand everything, but they can try and be understanding. They can try their best, because they're not going to know everything all at once.
Any thoughts from your perspective? So you are in a space, Michael, that you've never been before. Talk about it. Maybe that's advice to other parents as they're listening to you and say, I need to do what Michael did, and what can he help me?
Yeah, I was not in a good space, because when the reality of my son being gay came, you start going through a mourning process, right? And that mourning process is the same as if you lost a loved one. So especially, I think it's almost more like you lost somebody who committed suicide. Like, they did this to themselves. That was my initial misconception, right? That he chose this. How can I fix it? If he can choose it, then we can unchoose this. We can look at different porn. That was one of my thought processes.
It's pretty logical.
I know if we were looking at gay porn, maybe a couple of years of the other porn, then we could look anyway.
Oh, that'd be I could not do that. I'd be disgusted.
Right, I get it. It wasn't the right direction at all, but
it's logical thinking.
And I just wanted to fix it. And I knew that if I could just get in there and rewire his brain, I'd get back what I lost.
I love a couple things. I think parents need permission to mourn and grieve. And it doesn't mean they want their son to be gone. Mm-hmm. But as I talk with parents, I think that is part of their process, and they need to feel permission to mourn and grieve. And I don't know what the stages of grief are. I think there's denial and acceptance, and it seems like you're past all those stages now.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm starting all over again.
Well, and sometimes it does repeat, because like just for me, sometimes I'm like, oh, my life's great. And then the next day, oh yeah, I have this complication, and sometimes it feels bigger, and it's the same for the parent, it looks like my son's great. Maybe he will get married to a woman and things like that. And then there's some days where like, I'm not sure when or if this is going to happen, and I'm not seeing a lot of hope. So it's varying degrees, but nonetheless, we persevere.
Well, and as a parent, my biggest fear for Joe, and I know we should talk generalities here, but he's my son and he's my gay son. And my number one fear, because it's so high, is suicide among the LGBT community. That is my biggest fear. So 2-3 times a day, I'm thinking, how's Joe? I wonder how Joe's doing. I'll call Bird, who's up at school with him up in Rexburg. Hey, I just have this feeling. I know it's probably nothing. But could you make sure you check in on Joe today? Oh yeah, he's coming over for dinner tonight. Awesome. Just let me know how that goes and let me know where he is mentally. Because that's my biggest fear. I want to make sure.
Was that your fear from the beginning, or as you learned this space, did you better understand the difficult road your son's on?
Yeah, it was not my first. No, my first was all about me. What I lost, what I'm losing. The grandchildren that I'm not going to possibly ever have. Now I've got to, yeah. So my first reaction was very selfish. It wasn't about Joe. It was about me. But as you progress through that, you got to understand that it's not about you. Christ was never about him. It was about others and serving others and finding others and bringing others. It's never about you.
This comes back to my feeling about Christ-like attributes and masculinity. The fact that you were able to take off that natural man and make it about me, and I do the same thing as a dad, and recognize my responsibilities to Joe. And even though I'm mourning here, my learning process is to hear what is my ministerial and fatherly responsibility to my gay son. And it seems like something's given you the ability to be able to learn and change and grow. And that to me is a masculine attribute.
Yeah.
And I think it's helpful for our listeners. I had a question that came to my mind, but when did you kind of get past the fix it stage? How long did that take, Michael, where you just said, okay, I've got a gay son. I'm going to always have a gay son.
Yeah.
This isn't going to change.
Yeah, I don't think I'm past the fix it stage yet, but I know it's not going to, I just don't. Every so often it just comes up. Oh, hey, maybe we could,
what if?
What do we, but no, I realize now, I think I am further along. Every so often you've got those thoughts, right? Those pop in. Hey, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do that. No. This is who Joe is. So I need to accept that. On a daily basis, I have to accept that.
Joe, why did God make you gay or allow you to be gay? Or
This is one of my favorite topics. I love this. First off,
Joe.
Yeah, super. Off the bat, like with my junior high school perspective, it was just, I just want to screw you over, because my plan is for people to, be married in the temple, man and woman, but not you, kind of thing. But as I became more mature in understanding my sexuality and its role and size in my personality, I see it like Dad, is kind of freaking out over here. It's a superpower, it's an amazing spiritual superpower. And I see two sides of it. I have my homosexuality, which is my sexual attraction to men. And then I have my homo-emotionality, which is my desire to connect with men on a platonic, intimate, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, whatever way, which is a Christ-like way. And all of my attractions is this big bubble. And my sexual attractions towards men is this little circle within that bubble. It's still there, but my attractions to other people in non-sexual ways are a way that I can minister. Experiencing homo-emotionality helps me to connect in a more authentic way with people. Being more sensitive to their feelings and to the spirit. Being more open to different things because I am different. And so I am open to other things coming in, and I welcome diversity. I'm not saying that people that are straight don't. Lots of them do, because they have those attributes. It's not just within the gay sphere that you can have those. But it's a spiritual gift that I've been given because I have this predisposition of homosexuality and homo-emotionality. So I love it. It's my shortcut to the Savior.
if I pushed a button across the table that was this make me straight button, you could actually push it and be made straight, would you push it?
I'd throw the button away. I don't know. It's just...
That's a great answer. I wanted you guys to push the button until I heard so many of these stories like you just said, Joe, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is how Joe's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And God's not up there doing a head plant going, what went wrong with Joe?
Yeah.
He doesn't make mistakes and he isn't surprised. So as I've stepped in this space and I've heard you said it as beautifully as anybody's ever said, my impression is this is who you are, Joe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. And God's not looking at you saying what went wrong.
Well, and I love the point where it's his shortcut to God.
Isn't that
That's
great?
his shortcut. He's already there.
Mm-hmm.
He gets to talk to God right away because God gave him the gift a spiritual gift of being gay.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I
love
get to learn from him how the Savior loves people
Mm-hmm.
unconditionally.
I get to learn from my own son how the Savior loves people unconditionally.
And I think because every weakness on its opposing side is a spiritual gift. And that's something I just kind of learned from North Star, and something that was a huge mind blow for me. Because Dad's spiritual gift of vulnerability, he has chosen to develop that because of the things that he's gone through, and his decision to be open with his children has been a spiritual gift to create this environment where I can do that same thing. My difficulty of same-sex attraction within the church, it is difficult, and that's what I'm struggling with. But on the other side, that is a spiritual gift. I can use that weakness to get to Christ. Not to say that you are weak if you are gay,
Right.
Because we're not saying that at all.
because that is such a small part of it. That's just such a small part of experiencing same-sex attraction, because there's so much more beautiful things about doing that. And so everyone's weakness is closely tied to their spiritual gifts. I'm quite certain about that.
I wanted to read this quote from Brene Brown about suicide, and it reminds me a little bit about the good things you're doing. Oh, I've got the wrong quote out here, so I'll come back to it.
Okay.
One of the other questions I want to ask you, I get lots of messages from gay and lesbian pre-mission age saying, I really love the church and I'm really gay or lesbian. How does serving a mission work for me? Should I come out to my bishop? Should I not? Am I going to fall in love with a companion or not? And after talking with so many who have served missions, they've told me how great their mission was for them. And you've served a mission in New Zealand. What advice would you have for our listeners that are thinking, can I serve a mission?
Mm-hmm. I would say that it is a very personal basis. It's a very one-by-one thing. Some people have very positive experiences. If they experience same-sex attraction and they go on a mission, they have a very positive experience. Some of them have very harmful experiences. They might fall in love with a companion, and that is very difficult and might have to come home. But nonetheless, they still learn very valuable lessons and develop. So I think definitely pray about it. But overall, I think a mission is a very good idea if you feel like you're ready for that. And hopefully you could have that open communication with your parents. And yes, hopefully with some very trusted priesthood leaders or Relief Society president or just any leader.
Did you
build your team?
Build your team.
Team Joe, did you come out to your bishop or your stake president as gay?
So pretty much the day after my parents found out was Easter Sunday, and we spoke with my bishop, and I told him, but mostly what was addressed was pornography and masturbation, which was fine. It was difficult because I would love to have that connection, but maybe
you would love to have talked about being gay with your bishop.
Yes.
You wanted to have that discussion.
Yes.
And he wasn't ready, or for whatever reason.
No idea.
I don't think he had the tools.
That's very helpful,
right?
Because
I don't think
my
he had the
experience
tools.
is people want to talk.
Mm-hmm. And I don't blame him, for not knowing, because sometimes people just don't know. Sometimes they're not educated, and I mean, we try to educate, but we can only do so much to help them, and it's their choice. And sometimes we kind of expect, when I come with this question, I'm expecting this answer, but sometimes we don't get that. Sometimes God gave us this bishop for a reason so that we could maybe be patient. I don't know.
That's very thoughtful. So did you come out ever to your bishop or stake president as gay?
Pretty much every
Before your mission papers went
before
in.
my mission papers, I was very open with every
So they knew.
leadership. Yeah, they knew.
It was out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was
And
out.
they-
It was out because he came out to his seminary class.
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
Yeah. So
That's a good tangent.
so after mom and dad found out,
We were not ready for this.
no, they were not ready for this.
They wanted
Okay. This was really interesting. So we didn't really know how to talk about it. And I had been going to seminary. I finished junior year, went to senior year, and that's when I had Diana Holscher as my seminary teacher. And she was a lot more educated about the LGBT LDS situation. And so she had made some comments in class about that. And so I felt very comfortable opening
Kind
up to
comments.
her. Yes, very kind, well-educated comments in class. Very open and honest and comfortable comments. And so I felt okay talking with her and coming out to her. And so she reached out to my parents and spoke with my mom, and they communicated and were given some resources. And one time I was early to class and was speaking with Diana about same-sex attraction in regards to the atonement of Jesus Christ. And slowly my classmates started to come in, and then we kind of shifted the conversation towards just the atonement of Jesus Christ. But still underlying topic was my same-sex attraction. But no one knew. So we had this great class discussion the entire class time about Christ, and it was great. And towards the end, I raised my hand and came out at the time as bisexual, because that's how I understood my sexuality at the time.
That's great.
And this one girl, there was silence, of course, and then this one girl said, "But wait, you're the best out of all of us." And I don't say that to sound vain, just to kind of tell the story. But I told her it's because of this that I am close to my Savior. You know, that's why I love being here in seminary. And so that was excellent. It was a great, and my classmates reacted beautifully, perfectly to me. The jock in the class, the football dude, he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey Joe, come sit by me. Let's go to a movie. Let's hang out." We never really did, and I don't really care because he reached out.
Was it sometimes the most helpful to have the straight guys that didn't separate yourself?
Oh, phenomenal. To have a straight guy who is not my brother, who is not related to me, who knows that I'm gay and is comfortable reaching out and asking me questions and putting his arm around me, not feeling uncomfortable touching me, changes my world. It is so helpful.
And that's, all you on the podcast, and a lot of you are doing that are those straight guys. That's part of our baptism covenants, to bear, mourn, and comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I look at our baptism covenants as vertical, my relationship with God, commandment keeping, but horizontal.
Yes.
What am I going to do to lift someone's burden? So how impactful that simple, just not separating themselves from you, as you had this courage to come out in your seminary class.
Yeah, and it was similar to what my dad did when I came out to him, is he reached out and showed me that he loved me. Coming from my dad, that is so incredibly important, because he is a rock in my life, because I need that rock. I need to know that rock is going to hold me, but also knowing that my peers and the people around me are not going to fall away. Because that was, again, another one of my fears of coming out, was that I was going to lose everyone. But when I did, I didn't. And that was so helpful. Now, when those students went home and told their parents what had happened in seminary, they said, "We had a phenomenal lesson. Joe came out as bisexual, and the spirit was so strong."
Palpable, yeah. The spirit was so, and they wanted to share that because they hadn't felt the spirit that strong for a long time. Mm-hmm. Most of them were in seminary; they were sleeping. Yeah, right, early morning.
Yeah, the jock who usually had his head down, as soon as I said I was bisexual, he was perked up. He's like, I remember his face. It was so funny. And he was like, "What?" kind of thing. And so they went home, of course. "How was your day? How was seminary?" "Oh my gosh, we had this great lesson." Now the parents took it as, Joe's bisexual, so he's having sex with men and women. And so that was very complicated. And now the word was out and the stake was on fire. And so my mom and dad were getting calls. My seminary teacher was getting calls, the stake president, bishop, everyone. And so that was crazy. And all of a sudden my parents went out, and that was my lesson of, when I come out, my family comes out.
It's very helpful.
And they need to be ready for me to come out, especially if I'm going to do it in a big social bang, which I have learned I don't do that very often. That's probably the only time that I've really done a huge social coming out. So,
but you were led by the Spirit to do that. Anyway.
I was led by the Spirit to do that. And maybe it was needful, because now the stake had learned something, and all those students in that class had learned something. And maybe we needed to go through that hard time as a stake.
It wasn't really super hard either. It was just
shocking.
It was shocking, and there had to be some education there.
I love what your seminary teacher did. is that I've felt that every seminary teacher can say, we always want to find a bogeyman or a villain, and sometimes we teach the gospel. And I think the villain is people that sell children to sex trafficking and ISIS that wants to bomb me. It's not our LGBTQ brothers and sisters.
Yes.
So I think if we can create conversations and we look at them as our own people, not a different community. So I love what your seminary teacher did, and every seminary teacher can do that. Every local bishop, Relief Society president can say kind things about LGBTQ people. That's really part of our baptism covenants.
Yeah. There is no us and them. There's only us.
Just to comment about your courage, because I've said the word pornography and you've added masturbation to that.
Yes.
I just thought it's part of the no shame in who you are and your courage just to add that word. I did a whole podcast on this subject because there's so much misinformation and shame around that. But really those go together, like you said.
Yeah.
And I love that you just it's sort of who you are, Joe. You're just so confident in who you are that you can talk transparently about this and with no shame. And I think that is a great example for all of our listeners. And so I credit you for that.
Thank you.
Now I found my quote.
Okay.
And it kind of comes back to this, what you're doing in your family is the manly man showing a lot of physical affection for all your kids. And it's under the umbrella of suicide. Connection is why we're here. It's what gives us purpose and meaning in our lives. Belonging is in our DNA. We have a need to love. We are biologically, cognitively, and physically and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. When those needs are not met, we don't function as we are meant to be. We break, we fall apart, we numb, we ache, we hurt others, we get sick. We are profoundly social creatures. And the need to belong, accepted, and connected with others, to be loved is a sense of social connection, is one of our fundamental human needs. And I love the way your family is meeting that need for all of you through physical touch. And I think in our manly man, we're taught not to do that, but I love the way you're breaking that stereotype in your own family and how it's healing and needed. We have a pediatrician in our ward that talks. I remember him telling me this as a young father. He says, you know why God created the baby's skin so wonderfully? It's because they need to be touched.
Wow, that's cool.
And I thought, when I touch my own baby, my youngest kid's 18 now, but I remember touching a baby's skin and you just want to keep touching it.
Yeah.
And you want to rub
soft.
that skin's back. And I just think God has made that way.
That's great insight.
Yeah.
Talk about your future, Joe. Do you want to live a life as a celibate man? Do you hope to marry a woman? Talk about that road. Or do you know?
It's
Fluid.
very, well, I don't know. I have goals and hopes that I can one day be married to a woman in the temple. My patriarchal blessing is very clear about that. How it's going to happen, I have no idea. When? Who? Those are all questions that I constantly have. And for the past couple, years, I guess, it's been a really huge point of internal conflict there, because I don't know how that's going to happen. How am I ever going to find someone who wants to, as I used to say, give up their dream of having this perfect marriage, with a straight man, and to have all these kids and to have this beautiful sex life and things like that. And who would want to be stuck with a man who might not be comfortable in that sex life, or who might not be able to deliver on those things. And it's been a great point of anxiety.
That's so honest.
Yeah, but quite recently, North Star has definitely helped with this, is I don't have to worry about when, because God knows when and how and who. All I have to do is seek for his glory and work as his child in his kingdom, and that blessing will be given to me at the time that I need it. Right now, I am not ready to date romantically. I can date socially and have fun with other girls, and get to know them as friends and figure out how those kind of relationships work and how to date girls, But at this time, I'm not ready for a romantic relationship. And that's just what I've been communicating with God. That's what he says is that's a good place for you right now. Next week, it might be different. But I trust that God will give me exactly what I need and that he'll push me to the point that it's uncomfortable, but that I can learn. So I do see myself being married in the temple and having my own children. But again, when, why, or when, how, and who.
I sometimes, Michael, you were interviewing your 20-year-old son. Did I get that right this time?
21.
21.
It's okay.
And I think I'm interviewing somebody with the life experience of a 60 or 70-year-old. I mean, your maturity and your insights and your personal revelation, I just have to think you're, an incredibly valiant, mature spirit that came from the pre-earth life. And you're in this 21-year-old body, but you have the spirituality and the insights of somebody far more, than your age. And I used to get that sometimes with the YSAs that even though I was the bishop and sort of supposed to know everything, I would meet, and that's my feeling with you, is your spiritual, I'm in a biological body that's 30 plus years older than you. But your spirituality is really remarkable.
And I'm finding that with the youth.
Yeah.
Right? I hate the word millennial.
I don't know.
Right? But that generation,
they're the best.
They are so powerfully spiritual beings. The Lord truly did leave the most valiant for the end. And all four of my children speak beyond their years.
Yeah. How do you handle the naysayers that say, well, you're gay, you can never go into a mixed orientation marriage. That's a fraud. And so people would give, people have lots of advice for everybody.
Yeah.
How do you handle that, Joe?
When I first came out, it was quite difficult. I had two very, very close friends who are still very, very close to me, who didn't quite understand why I wanted to stay in the church. And they wanted to support me in the way that they believed would help me, which was totally an act of integrity on their part, of their beliefs. It was very difficult, though, because people that I really loved and wanted acceptance from couldn't really deliver in the way that I needed it at that time. And so, it's this thing of like, why, Joe, would you waste your entire life? And I constantly have that thought. I was like, am I wasting my life? And could I just be comfortable in a relationship with a man? I have dated and I have had close relationships with women, but to a point it was comfortable, and so it was always so confusing. So being with having that, it wasn't so much negative as it was just not what I needed. And so it was very difficult. So coming out to people in the church is quite easy because I'm coming out in the perspective of the plan of salvation. But friends that I have that are outside of the church, when I come out to them and say I'm active in this church and I want to remain active and I'm going to marry a woman, they're like, wait, what? And so it's very difficult, but God's opinion of me is higher than anything. And my testimony of his plan is so strong, and my grandmother gave an excellent lesson on that. She definitely received some revelation. She strung the string from one end of the house to the other, said, imagine that the string never ends on both sides. And then she put this little tiny bead right in the middle of it. And she said, this bead is our life. We lived for eternity before this, and we will live for eternity after this. And this little bead determines how we feel after this life for eternity. But it also shows that the things that we go through in this life are insignificant compared to what we will be experiencing in the next life. And that changed my life. That lesson gave me so much hope. And I've communicated this with my grandma, and she's
hope,
that hope of the future of true happiness for eternity if I just hold on and if I just stay true to the covenants that I have made and trust in God and endure to the end. Yeah.
Boy, I just am struck with your spiritual maturity. You brought tears to my eyes with that last few minutes.
And if it wasn't, I mean, thank you. I just honestly wouldn't have developed like this had it not been for the circumstances that I had been brought up with, my parents who were spiritual giants and vulnerable, beautiful, amazing, strong in the gospel.
Thank you, Wendy. Wish you were here to look into the eyes of your husband and son and your daughter who's here. We're coming to the end. We try to keep these about an hour and 15 minutes. We could go on for another hour. As I'm still kind of new to this space, I mean, it's been 3 or 4 years, and the mixed orientation marriage is new to me. And it wasn't until I did some podcasts with people in mixed orientation marriages, and the best ones have been when the straight spouse is here talking about why they love their gay spouse.
Yes.
And it's been the couples have just been some of the best love stories I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And the foundation of their marriage of trust, honesty, vulnerability, and sexual intimacy is just a part of a marriage. And I love the way you've framed that up. And I just think whoever marries you is going to love you for just who you are, Joe.
I would hope so.
And she is not going to want to change you. And she's going to fall in love with you. And you will probably heal her in a way that she probably has something going on in her life. Mm-hmm. And you will probably heal her and have insights into her, and it will cause her just to fall in love with you. And you will fall in love with her. And there's high profile marriages, mixed orientation marriages that have kind of broken up. And there's a society that, I love the way you frame that, your friends out of the church want you to, but personal revelation, I've just learned to honor that. And who am I to have any revelation for you?
Yeah.
And who am I to say what might or might not work? And I think it's just a core principle of our gospel is you have personal revelation for you, John. And so I believe one day, I'm not sure we're Facebook friends yet, but I think I'm Facebook friends with your dad, that I will be scrolling down Facebook one day and I will see you and your wife walk out of a temple. Mm-hmm. I'll just be full of joy. Mm-hmm. That's going to happen for you, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot. I just the past couple of days, because there are same-sex marriages that are beautiful, and that is true love. It's beautiful. And I love seeing that. I mean, does it hurt me a tiny bit? Yeah, it does. Just a little bit, to being honest. But if you get a man and a woman who have already made covenants, and they make a covenant with the Lord, and their relationship is the man and the woman and Christ, that is incredible love, and what an amazing relationship that would be, and not based on anything, not based on physicality, not based on the sexual drive, because that's usually what then what makes relationships deteriorate, if it's based on that sexual, attraction rather than the emotional, spiritual, eternal attraction. Like the spirits connecting rather than just the bodies.
Why do you think you'll be a really good dad?
I can help my kids just be themselves. If my son wants to wear some pink nail polish to school, I don't have any problems. They can, and I can be open and honest with them. And I'm not sure because I don't know my kids yet. I don't know when they would be ready for me to know that I was gay.
They're going to be awesome and beautiful.
Well, yeah, because they're descended from you.
Thank you.
But funny. I believe, my spiritual connection with God, I have a very strong testimony of God and my testimony of that you can do hard things. And this is why, because I've experienced this. And the gospel has done so much for me, and I am doing this, despite this. And I think I'm a fun guy, and I like to have dance parties. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.
I think you're going to be a great dad.
Thank you.
And they'll figure out at some point they have a gay dad.
Yeah.
And I think that they will love you as their dad. And I would guess if we could do a podcast in 20 years or 30 years with your own kids on the awesome. Podcast, and they talk about you as a dad.
Yeah.
And your wife, and you're still going to be alive. Mikel and Mikel and Wendy.
Yeah. Yes.
But I just, that's the gospel of Jesus Christ that wants when I meet people, to give them hope. And I just think that's part of your future, and it's promised in your patriarchal blessing. And society or say, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who those voices are, but I want to drown those voices out because your personal revelation is your personal revelation, and I want to honor that. And I love your empathy for people that have find a different path. And even if it's outside of the doctrine of our church, I've learned to just honor those people and leave that at the Savior's feet. I invite everybody to stay and follow our teachings, but if someone leaves, I just sort of leave that at the Savior's feet.
Perfect.
And
It's their journey.
It's their journey. Any concluding thoughts, Michael, and then Joe?
Well, I talked to the parents, have some advice.
Good.
I kind of wrote them down
Good.
last night. You don't need to know the answers to love. Yeah, so you don't need to know the answers to love. Ask your family members if they are experiencing same-sex attractions or feeling like they are part of the LGBT community. Ask your family member questions about their experiences. If they come out to you, ask them about their experiences.
What's your story?
What's your story? Will you tell me your story? Say, I love you. Say, I know you didn't choose this. Say, you're still the same person to me. Nothing has changed. Often parents think it's a phase and they want to ignore it because it's going to go away. It's not a phase. Find other parents and create a support group.
Because parents need a support group.
We need support groups. To the leaders, bishops, young men's presidents, young women's presidents, stake presidents, reach out to the parents of these young people. They are likely going through turmoil. When Joe came out to me and my wife, he'd already worked through this for 5 years. I'm barely 4 years into this. Joe's 9 years into this. And I'm still going through turmoil. I would love to have my bishop and my stake president wrap their arms around me and say, please come be part of our ward, which I am part of the ward, and I feel I'm very much part of my ward, and I feel like my leaders do love me. But these are for the parents that don't feel a part of their ward, that don't feel like they are loved. As leaders, you are standing where Christ would be standing. Play and be that role. This is difficult on a marriage. Meet with the parents. Check in on them. When you understand homo-emotionality, you start to understand that your child needs meaningful relationships with the same gender, not sexual relationships. Those are my final thoughts.
Great thoughts. On behalf of all our listeners, thank you, Michael. Joe.
From a son's perspective, and just kind of as for those who are listening that experience same-sex attraction, that could be in any part of their journey, is that this part of you is not you. If you were to put your thumb up to your eye and close the other eye, it would be the biggest thing in the room. But it's not. It's your thumb. It's part of you. But there's all these other things in the room. There's your whole body. There's all the other things. You have family here. You have friends. Your sexuality is not you. It is, yes, it is an important part of you, you know, and it helps you, again, with the homo-emotionality part. It's a huge part of your personality. But it is not a defining role of your fate. You know, it is not a nail in the coffin. It is a tool in the toolbox that you can not only that you can use not only to help yourself, but also to help others. And God can guide you by the Spirit to know how to help people. God will guide you to know when to come out to people or not to come out to people, or how to reach out to someone, or when to share your story. Again, it is a spiritual superpower. I used to have shame associated with my same-sex attraction, but I'm very proud to be a gay Christian LDS person. So never lose hope. Trust in God that he has a plan, no matter what that plan might be for you. If it's celibacy, if it's getting married,
Be open to that.
be open to whatever he has, because whatever he has, he will bless you with and you will be okay with, whether it's in this life or in the next life. He has not predestined you to receive anything less than what he has. He's not going to shortcut you. He's not going to give this guy blessings that he's not going to give to you. That's not going to happen. He's going to provide you with everything. Just trust him.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. You're not here, but thank you for raising such a wonderful son and being a wonderful wife and mother and all your kids. Thank you. We've got Nate, a friend in the room, Bird, a sister who's helping so much at BYU Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And I sense a great support to everybody. And thank you, Bird. And Joe, thank you. It's an honor to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Are great insights in the gospel of Jesus Christ, a level of maturity and insights, and you have a great life ahead of you. And you are going to bring hope and healing in the gospel to so many people. And we thank our listeners for joining us on another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love, hosted by Richard Osler.